So we had Dan John visit last year, late last year.
I missed it.
He missed it. It was phenomenal. He's such a smart man. He's got his book, Can You Go? And he came and did a three-day seminar here and presented to us and a bunch of other people. One of the biggest takeaways for me was his concept of the prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah, we've talked about this after that as well, teaching it to the interns.
I think it's absolutely phenomenal. The concept is you're a prisoner, so you're in prison, and you've only got 15 minutes on the yard to do your exercise. You've got 15 minutes, you've got 3 exercises. What would you do to get the biggest bang for your buck, the most efficiency out of that time? And so there's a lot of debate amongst the team, and when we introduce to the interns, there's a lot of debate there as well, as to what is the best bang for your buck? What's the best thing you can do to get a result for your athletes?
Yeah. The least amount of time to get the most results. I think my answer changes every time. If we're going with just exercises, it's no stretches.
That doesn't matter. You've got so the usual rule is you've got 3 things to do. In order, what's the 3 things you would do in the gym for performance, for your body, just in general? You can only do these 3 things for the rest of life. You've got a life sentence.
Alright. I would go a hip flexor stretch.
Yep.
I'd go a hanging loaded single leg squat, and I would go a chin up as well. Upper body.
Okay, cool. My 3 would be probably a rec fem stretch up against the wall, because even though it's a bit more aggressive and you couldn't do it before training, you're hitting rec fem and hip flexor a little bit at the same time. So I'd also go with the stretch though, to loosen off that anterior chain. I would go with a core lift, not a hanging single leg squat. So I just think the core lift is something bang for your buck. You've got
all in one
anti-flexion, you've got core, you can set the shoulders back, and then also you've got just vertical leap, sprinting, lower body strength, hamstrings, glutes, the whole lot. It's just a super powerful, massive. I think it's probably the most bang for buck exercise we do in the gym.
In here, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And then my 3rd one would probably maybe a chin up, maybe inverted row. I really like inverted row for some reason, and everyone always convinced me, it should be a chin up, but I somehow, for some reason, keep going back to an inverted row.
It just definitely has to be the pull.
Something pull for upper body, something retraction or retraction and compression. Yeah, so probably a chin, because you've also got that functional, got a bit of traction on the spine, which will sort of cancel out your compression from the core lift, and then you've also got the fact that as an athlete, or if you're in prison, you've got to stay tough. Yeah. Having stability in your shoulder overhead with that ability to hold the shoulder joint in place, I think is really valuable.
Absolutely.
So probably a chin up. Yeah.
And mine changes all the time. It also changes when I'm considering it for different populations. For myself, for basketballers, for soccer players, cricket players, things like that, it'll change.
So speaking of change, why did you go with the hanging single leg squat over the core lift then?
I've been playing around with it a lot recently, and it's just added a whole new world of pain to my workouts. You just get that extra range. You're getting down. I was finding a lot of asymmetries with my left to right leg. So my left glute wasn't working anywhere near as hard as my right when I was dropping down to that single leg range. And so that's evened out and it's helped a lot with my running as well, which has been really good.
There's a lot to be said for unilateral.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about unilateral exercise.
So, the way humans evolved is we're unilateral by evolution.
Bipedal, upright, walking, gait, sack.
Evolved to run. That whole theory, and it's just the nervous system is actually wired for you to be a whole lot stronger working off one leg compared to 2.
Yeah, it's called the bilateral deficit. That idea that you could squat 100 kilos on 2 legs, but you can actually squat more than half of that on 1 leg. Yeah. So you'd be able to squat probably 70 or 80 on 1 leg compared to the 100 and...
Nervous system's just switched on and ready to perform, pushing from 1 leg compared to 2.
Yeah, and so it comes back to sprinting and all that sort of stuff as well. And it's a fascinating thing. And also that, I really like that actually. Maybe the answer is some sort of a single leg, maybe it's a single leg loaded arabesque. Yeah. As a version instead of the core lift.
Absolutely.
To get that force reduction and also to iron out those asymmetries and to work on that unilateral. So I think it's interesting. The other thing I wanted to talk about today was that sort of piggybacks on the prisoner's dilemma, that idea of, you've only got 1 or 2 exercises or 3 exercises in our case to pick for your athletes or your population. The other concept is 80-20.
Yeah,
Pareto's principle. Yeah.
What was he? I don't know what his first name was.
I'll write it in the comments.
But Italian scientist.
Italian economist.
And he found on a whole scale of things. I think it was originally 20% of the people in Italy had 80% of the wealth.
And then 20% of people also had 80% of the land as well. So it was
Yeah.
landowners and wealth holders.
And so he took this to all different types of experiments, and he found that relationship was there across the board.
That a lot of things are roughly 80-20. 80% of things are done by 20% of things.
Yeah.
The same kind of exists in the gym.
Absolutely.
80% of the results we get, for ourselves, for our athletes, for our populations, rehab, performance, all that sort of thing, 80% of the results come from 20% of the things you do or the time you spend. What do you think? I know what I think our number one bang for buck is. What do you think?
I think our biggest bang for buck is our warm up plus a core lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roll, stretch, activate, core and glute activation.
Yeah.
And if you just did a heavy core lift with a locked in neutral spine and good hip drive and good intent to move,
That's
explosive,
20%. Yeah.
those right there are your 20%. And then you've got the squats are great for quads and for tendons, and you've got like your upper body stuff, of course, and a little extra hamstring and core stuff. But if you just did a really thorough roll, stretch, activate, maybe even a dynamic warm up as well, add that in there as well.
Cover the bases.
And then did a bunch of core lifting, you have some pretty strong and robust athletes.
Absolutely. We're only seeing a majority of athletes once a week, so it makes sense to delve in a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But they're getting the most of the results from those couple of key drills.
It's not to say the others are useless. It's not to say that everything else we do in the workout is fluff. It's still beneficial. But if we only had our athletes for 20 minutes a week, we do it. 10 minutes of warm up, 10 minutes of core lifting.
And it comes to that whole variety discussion as well.
Mm.
It's like, should you be giving athletes more and more variety to create that change?
So variety is good to a point, but you still got to, when you're picking your new exercise or changing things up, come back to Pareto's principle, come back to the prisoner's dilemma. Would I still be happy picking the prisoner's dilemma workout from this new exercise I've given?